Let me tell you a quick story. Imagine a man who bought the most powerful sports car in the world, a Lambo. This car's incredible, 600 horsepower, lightning acceleration, the fastest machine in the world. And the man gets inside of the car, puts the engine on, presses the gas. In the first few minutes, everything is amazing. The car flies down the road at a fast enough pace. For a couple minutes, a couple hours. But then something happens. The engine begins to overheat. The fuel starts to run low. The tires begin to wear down. And suddenly the driver realizes something very important. Just because the car is powerful doesn't mean it can run at full speed forever. Power is the ability to go fast. Strength is the ability to keep going without breaking down. And for this reason, I'll give you the exact problem why every empire in history eventually faces certain paths. I'm not gonna say which paths, but it goes down certain paths. Ladies and gentlemen, put your listening ears on first. Because what I'm about to explain to you is something most geopolitical analysts don't understand and don't tell you. And trust me when I say this, nobody understands geopolitics better than me. And I trust you to believe me when I say this. Nobody. So when I say these things and explain these things, you need to listen attentively and pay close attention. Because what I'm about to say is extremely important. The world today worships power. Military power, economic power, technological power. But the real force that determines whether nations succeed long term is not power. It is strength. For this reason, I have to put power and strength as the two dichotomies on a different spectrum of things. You know, power is completely different to strength, and strength is completely different to power, vice versa. Right now, the United States has been the most powerful country on earth, the largest military, the most advanced weapons, global alliances, military bases across the whole world, while not letting any other country have a military base in the United States. Obviously not. On paper, the United States has more power than any modern empire. But here's the real question. Does it have the strength to apply that power everywhere at once? Answer that question for me. The obvious answer is no. Because power is capacity. Strength is sustained application. That's what you have to understand. Think about your house. You have electricity. You have electrical power. You can run everything. The oven, the AC, the washer, the microwave, the TV, the dryer, the heater, the console, the devices. But can you do it all at once? Because if you actually try to run every single thing inside of your house all at once, the breaker trips, the system shuts down. Because having power doesn't mean you have the capacity to sustain it for a long enough period of time. I'll give you another analogy. You go to the gym, you bench, let's say 225 pounds. That's what people benching right now. You can do it. Maybe once, twice, perhaps 5 times. But for 24 hours, impossible. Because strength runs out and nations are no different. You need to understand those two topics when I say these things wisely. I'm not a big fan of war. And anyone who goes into war understands that strength matters mostly in all of these things. If you don't have strength, you're going to waste a lot of resources. Too many wars are what crumbles empires. Go to the history books. What do you think happened to the British Empire? That's too many wars at one point. But here's a comfortable truth. No matter how powerful a country is, it cannot fight every war at the same time. By the same time, I mean simultaneously. Empires don't fall because they're weak. They fall because they take too many enemies at once. Too many fronts, too many conflicts, too many commitments. Eventually, strength gets stretched so thin. I want you to understand this. This isn't anti-American. I love America. I love the United States of America. That's the country I have hope for. This is strategic reality. A great nation doesn't fight everywhere at once. It fights where it matters the most. We can't keep on waging too many wars. I'm sure the public is tired of this. I'm just going to say this. But nevertheless, the British Empire controlled a quarter of the world, dominated oceans, ruled continents, but eventually what happened to their cause? Too many responsibilities, too many taxes to figure out and solve for the whole empire that they were running. Too many managers they needed to run all these different operations in every fucking region, part of the world. Too much to manage, too much to do, too many conflicts, too many problems, more money, more problems. And they had to step back, not because they lacked power, but because sustaining it everywhere wasn't possible. Sometimes you overexpand. Now let's bring this to today. Because this war just took a very serious turn. President Trump is not talking about negotiation. He's not talking about compromise. He's demanding one thing: unconditional surrender. Let that sink in for a second. That's not diplomacy. That's endgame language. That's World War level language. That means the goal is not to manage the conflict. The goal is to end it completely. To push Iran to the point where it cannot continue. Where it has no choice but to stop. If I was the United States right now, I'll have two options. I could either claim victory and say, I've already eliminated most of Iran's supreme leaders and government or whatever military capabilities, and I could say, let me take the victory and run away with the victory. Or I could do the second option. Complete the job all the way to the ground. That means complete and annihilate any new supreme leader that steps up to that Iranian regime, and completely annihilate everything and finish the job before claiming victory completely. Because if we claim victory right now and step back from the whole geopolitical climate structure of the Iranian regime, something is going to happen. And I'll tell you exactly what's going to happen. Whoever steps into power next will have to finish off this whole battle when it could have been done right now. This Iranian war is something that happened 20 years ago. Presidents pushed it under the rug. They never really made no forced action like what Trump just did. But right now he's done that. He needs to finish the job till the end. Till the whole Iranian regime is annihilated. That's the truth. Now on the other side, Iran is rejecting that completely because no country wants to surrender publicly. That's not just losing the war. That's losing legitimacy. That's risking internal collapse. That's risking leadership itself. So what happens? One side demands surrender, the other refuses. Retaliation occurs. That's when wars become more dangerous than ever before. Because now it doesn't matter or end until something breaks. That's what you need to understand. But this whole thing of the Iranian regime and the United States and the whole geopolitical climate of the world reminds me of one thing that was new for a long time. Pick a side. You want to be a person that picks a side in all situations. You never want to be a person that's on the fence. If you are on the fence, you are wasting your time. You're wasting your time. If war or something is about to start, you need to pick a side now. Don't be the person that's on the top of the fence saying, I want to come over here and eat here on this side of the fence, and I want to go to the other side of the fence and eat here too. You can't eat on both sides. That is why I advise people pick a side in everything you do. Never be in the middle. Pick a side. You have two decisions, this side or that side. Now let me explain this really happening. Let me explain what's really happening underneath all of this. This is no longer just a regional conflict. This is turning into a global alignment test. The message being sent is very simple. President Trump has urged all his allies that he knows are associated with the United States. Ask them for help, especially the ones in NATO. Ask them for help to send warships to the point of the Strait of Hormuz, and majority of them did not. I mean, what do you think is going to happen? In my opinion, that looked more like a test to see if these so-called allies would actually help. How could I be the person that's helping you all the time and again, since after World War II, and you claim to be my ally, and now I go into a war with another country and you can't even send me a boat, a ship, a landing warship where I could land my planes on, or a landing warship where I could take off with my planes, or like come back and forth in the ocean, the Pacific Ocean or Atlantic Ocean. You can't send me a ship when I've been your ally. I've helped you time and time again, and when it's time for you to help me, you don't want to help me. That is what the United States is facing right now. The message being sent right now is very simple. Are you with us? Are you with them? Pick a side. And once the world starts operating like that, everything changes. Neutrality becomes difficult. Countries are forced to choose. Alliances tighten, tensions rise, and the world slowly begins to divide into blocks. We've seen this pattern before in history, and it never stays small. For this reason, I must talk about the Strait of Hormuz. I'm going to say that again, the Strait of Hormuz. If you don't know what the Strait of Hormuz is, this is a part in Iranian's geography where 20% of the world's oil gets to move globally. This affects the economy when it gets blocked by the Iranians and the people trying to put the mines in the river in the Strait of Hormuz. The Strait of Hormuz is everyone's problem. Now here's another shit happening right now. The United States is signaling something very important. This is not just America's responsibility. The Strait of Hormuz carries about 20% of the world's oil supply. That means this is not regional. This is global. It is global. And the message being sent is simple. If the world depends on this corridor, this little tight space, then the world should help protect it. It shouldn't be just America's responsibility alone. Although, yes, they started a war, however. But this war has been kind of a cold war for the last 20 years. It's just been swept under the rug. And now we're just seeing the full tension that's blowing up from the pot of steamy water that's been boiling for decades now. This is a shift in strategy, shared responsibility, shared security. Because when global systems require global participation, we need enforcement now. We need more help, more allies for the Strait of Hormuz if we want the economy to not crumble. Yesterday I went to go buy gas for $25. I felt like putting $25 in my tank. That got me nowhere. It got me nowhere in my car. What happened? I ended up spending $44 at a gas pump. Usually my gas is $3.20, but now it was $3.70. That was totally different. It was a shock, honestly. That just shows you how little things that you take for granted every day could get affected by the geopolitical climate of the world. And you still think geopolitics doesn't matter. I advise you to think again. Soon enough, the gas price may even go to $7 per gallon. You don't even know. Now, this is where things get interesting. China's being put into this situation, whether it likes it or not. China depends heavily on the Middle Eastern oil. So instability in that region directly affects China. And now the pressure builds up. Will China stay neutral? Will it step in diplomatically? Or will it be forced to take a position? Because you cannot benefit from global systems and then disappear when these systems are threatened. At some point, you have to decide your role. It's that simple. Another major shift that's happening. The NATO is no longer just about Europe. It's expanding its function, energy security, trade routes, Middle East stability. There are now global security concerns. And that tells you something very important. Something extremely important. Modern conflicts are no longer isolated. They are interconnected to each other, whether you like it or not to admit. What happens in one region, all the way in the fucking South, or South Pacific or whatever, wherever that region is, affects the entire system, the whole global system. That's how important the Strait of Hormuz right now is. Now let's bring this back together. If the world is starting to divide into blocks, maybe the West versus the others, the allies versus the rivals, you begin to see the early structure of something bigger. Now, that doesn't mean the world war is guaranteed, but it does mean the system has become more polarized. And by polarized, I mean extreme love or extreme hate. And when the system's polarized, tensions rise faster, decisions become harder, and conflicts become more difficult to contain. There are two types of people watching this right now. The first type are the ones who understand that geopolitics matter, and they understand that what happens in Iran right now affects the oil, affects the prices, affects the economies, affects the future of the children and the generations that come after them. These are the wise people that understand geopolitics matter, and they want to be aware of the scenario of what's happening currently in time. And you know, we have the people on the other side. I'm not going to talk too much about the people on the other side. The people on the side do not matter. They're the ones that think, oh, this doesn't affect me. This doesn't matter. This doesn't matter in my situation. I don't have energy to discuss who these people are. But I want you to be the wise people, the people who move with awareness, who position themselves early, who don't wait until the world changes. They prepare before it does. They anticipate all these things happening. I anticipated so many of these things happening. I was one of the first people to talk about the whole Iran situation. One of my first videos, I said, leave Iran now if you're a US citizen living in Iran. The ones who don't care. Don't be the people on the other side. We're never going to talk about those people. You know, be the first group. That's the most extremely important point. Then you already know something's very different. You need systems, you need positioning, you need leverage. That's where I created the Big Nathan AI solutions. If you want to anticipate things early, use my AI software for your business. It's an AI receptionist that works 24/7, answers calls, books your appointments, handles customers. So your business runs with power without exhaustion. Being exhausted. Strength matters more than power. If you want to go even deeper, if you want to sharpen your mindset, you want to sharpen your strategy, your understanding of how the world actually works, then book a Big Nathan consultations, because the difference between the people who win and the people who react is understanding. And this is where it hits the entire world. Oil. Because oil is not just a commodity. Oil is the bloodstream of the global economy. I'm going to say that again. Oil is the bloodstream of the global economy. Every truck, every plane, every cargo ship, every factory, every military operation runs on energy. Energy cannot be destroyed. Energy cannot be destroyed. It can only be transferred to somewhere else. And right now, that energy is still overwhelmingly oil. Now, here's a crucial point. About 20% of the world's oil supply, roughly 17 to 20 million barrels of oil per day. Barrels, big barrels, flow through the one narrow choke point called the Strait of Hormuz. I just talked about that. One corridor, one passage, one pressure point for the entire global system. And right now, the system called the Strait of Hormuz is under pressure. Shipping disruptions, military tensions, uncertainty in the region. People are scared to go past that. They're taking longer routes now, which cost more money, more time, and lessens the efficiency. Some estimates suggest that the flow have dropped dramatically, in some cases towards 10% of normal movement during peak disruptions. Now think about that for a second. If you suddenly remove even a fraction of global oil supply, markets don't wait, they react instantly. We're already seeing it. Oil prices pushing above $90 per barrel. US crude oil hovering around $94. And analysts are warning if disruptions continue, oil could break $100 very quickly. If escalation continues, if you're looking at, you could be looking at 150 to 200 per barrel. In extreme scenarios, major conflicts, sustained blockage, and wider regional wars, you could be looking at $300 per barrel on the table. Now understand what that means. This is not about fuel. This is about higher gas prices, higher transportation costs, higher food prices, higher inflation across the entire global economy. Because when energy becomes expensive, everything becomes expensive. Listen, Oil doesn't just move cars, it moves the entire system to flow in the way it's supposed to. Let's be honest for a moment. Strip away the politics, strip away the narratives, strip away what people want you to believe. The world still runs on oil. Not theory, reality. Over 80% of the world's global energy consumption still comes from fossil fuels. Oil alone accounts for roughly 30% of the world's total energy use. I'm going to say that again. Oil alone accounts for roughly 30% of the world's total energy use. That means nearly 1/3 of the modern civilization is powered directly by oil. You need oil right now for the economy. If oil collapses, the whole global system collapses. Planes don't fly without it. Ships don't move without it. Supply chains don't function without it. Military dominance doesn't exist without it. And here's the problem most people don't want to admit. Even renewable energy systems depend on oil at some stage. Manufacturing, transportation, installation, and maintenance. Maintenance too. So when oil becomes unstable, the world becomes unstable. No, gradually, quickly. Oh, but I don't need oil. Are you fucking stupid? You just went for an oil change 2 days ago and you paid a certain amount just to get that oil. Don't you think that oil comes from somewhere in the Middle East? You need oil. I'm telling you right now. That's where every major power of Earth watches the Middle East so closely. That's why they do. Because energy stability is not optional. It is foundational. And speaking of power, let me talk to people right now who are actually paying attention right now. Because there's 2,000 people watching this. The ones that understand that what's happening and the ones who don't. If you don't understand that the world is shifting, if you understand the systems matter, if you understand that leverage matters, then you already know this. You cannot run a business on chaos. You need systems, you need structure. You need something that gives you power without exhausting your strength. Strength is greater than power. Not power is greater than strength. Strength is more important than power. I hope you know that. That's why I built the Big Nathan AI Solutions. An AI receptionist that works 24/7, never sleeps, never misses a call, books appointments, handles customers, creates consistency in your business while you focus on growth. Because in a world that's becoming more unpredictable, the people who win are the ones who build systems that don't break. Like the Strait of Hormuz. You need a stronger system than that. Where you don't want the whole oil of 20% of the world flowing through there. You need to find other spots. Power impresses people, but strength sustains nations. Anyone can show power, flashy military, big headlines, strong statements. But real leadership is about discipline. It's about understanding when to act, when not to act. And the United States has power. There is no question about that. But the smartest leaders in history understood something very important. Power is with great honor. And power without discipline becomes overextension. And overextension is where problems begin. The goal is not to fight everywhere. The goal is not to react to everything. The goal is to apply strength strategically. Because when power is used widely, that's when nations don't just survive. That's when they lead. But let me leave you with this. War doesn't end randomly. History shows us something very clear. Wars end in one of two ways. Either both sides reach a point where they sit down and negotiate, which I'm really hoping for. I hope we reach a situation where we could negotiate, but it feels like it's already far past that. Or one side reaches a point where it simply cannot continue anymore, where the economy breaks, where the military is exhausted and loses strength, where leadership loses control. That's when wars end in surrender. Right now, the world is watching to see which path this conflict takes. Will it end through negotiation, or will it end through maybe one side push to the other edge? Because the longer the wars last, the more unpredictable they become. And the more unpredictable they become, the more dangerous they become. I'm just going to say this right now. USA. We're going to take over Iran. We're going to bring that regime. I pray for the boots on the ground soldiers that are being sent right now. It's about 2,500 boots on the ground soldiers that's going to be sent to Iran. I don't know how. I just hope they're protected. Another victory of the USA I'm going to talk about is this: the Karg Island, where most of the oil supply Iran really distributes to the world, has been captured by the United States government. as they've done the military strikes. That's a really good win. Like right now, I'll be honest, the scoreboard between the USA and Iran is probably like 52-4. 52-4. If we were to compare it to like a basketball game. But nevertheless, let's close with scripture as usual. As it is written in Ecclesiastes chapter 9 verse 11. The race is not to the swift, nor the battle to the strong, but time and chance happen to them all. Stay tuned. Stay working. Operation Pronto signing now. Leave a like, comment, subscribe, and share this video to your friends. Just know the Strait of Hormuz matters more than you think. If 20% of the world's oil moves through it,